Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia and this is the Frontline Changes report for the past 12 hours. So basically I'm thinking or experimenting to change the timing of the Frontline Changes to this timing. But let's see how this goes. So anyway, we have quite a bit of Frontline Changes. We're going to jump straight into the Kupyansk front. So over at the Kupyansk front, so let me zoom out a bit. So over at this is Kupyansk. Over at Stepova Novoselivka, we have a geolocation. This is a very rare one at Stepova Novoselivka. So this geolocation of Russian forces here, meaning that the Russian forces have straightened the front line at the gates of Stepova Novoselivka. So this is Stepova Novoselivka. Is tentatively still believed to be under Ukrainian control. So the Russians have advanced and potentially they're going to attack it. The advance is probably around 700-800 meters. So that is the front line change over here. So this is Stepova Novoselivka. Yeah. So yes, you can see the straightening of the front line. So that's after the Kupyansk front, the next front line change, we jump to the Pokrovsk front. So this is Pokrovsk. And over at this Pokrovsk sector at the Novo-Mykolaiivka region, geolocation of Russians raising the flag in the northernmost street confirms the full capture of Novo-Mykolaiivka. The Russians have confirmed this capture, and based on the geography, because of the river, the Solona River here, and this capture means that all of this area here must be under Russian control as well. So the Ukrainian claims in this sector is now invalidated. So if you zoom in a bit, you can see the streets. There's 3 streets. The Russian forces geolocated in the top street now, and which means that they have taken full control of this entire street. So that is the frontline change. And if you based on this this location, you can see the river is over here. Ukrainians can't possibly be here, which means that this entire chunk, this impossible salient here, must be under Russian control. So that's Novo-Mykolaiivka. The next front line change after this is over at Zeleny Kut. So over in the KOMAR front, this is KOMAR. Over at Bahate and Oleksievka region, the Ukrainian mapping have updated their map to draw along the Voschar River, basically going almost exactly in line with the Russian mapping. That this chunk of open ground is now under Russian control. The entire stretch here is around 6 kilometers. So the Ukrainians have considered that they have lost these positions. So however, it's important to note that all the towns here, Oleksievka is already announced captured by the Russians on the 12th of May, Zeleny on the 14th of June, and we have the latest on the 29th of June. The Russians have announced the capture of Novo-Ukrainka, which means that based on Russian mapping, this entire chunk here is all under Russian control. So the battle currently is waging over at Dashny. So there's a potential that we are missing this frontline change. So this entire frontline change is missing. So we shall see how this develop. But tentatively, this is not the official frontline change. We don't have any sources for this other than Russian words, which is not good enough. Unless they show a map, which they don't. So after Novo-Ukrainka at the KOMAR front, the next one is over at there is the Linikut at Zorya. So the Ukrainian mapping have mapped a very weird mapping. They refuse to acknowledge the loss of Yalta and Zorya despite clear Russians planting the flags in these 2 villages. They instead draw a weird spike across the Mokryali River. So they stick this thing in across the river, breaking this this first time that they have penetrated through this barrier. And the gray zone drawn on the Ukrainian mapping is really weird. They draw like a huge chunk of Pidupne as gray zone, which means the Russians have actually entered into Pidupne according to the Ukrainian mapping. Super weird. And they draw it like from this direction, like through Zorya. This is super weird mapping from the Ukrainian side. I wonder if I have this to show you. So you can, this is you can see, yeah, this is what they did. Super weird. So this is Zorya. So this is deep state UA, by the way. Deep state UA mapping. Let me move deep state UA. So they map, so Zorya, and they refuse to acknowledge the loss of Yalta and Zorya. They rather draw this weird spike across this impossible line. Like there's no front line they suppose that they can possibly be like this, and cross the river, and then the gray zone reach into Pipdone. How is this possible? Like, you know, the pro-Russian side, the pro-Russian geolocator and mappers are like laughing the hell out of the deep state UA's cope. You know, this is a massive cope. So I just want to say, yeah, true geolocation is without doubt that this entire region here is already gone. It's all fully Russian control. Especially Zorya, Yalta is definitely 100% under Russian control. Yeah, so this is just a show that the Russians have decided to continue the attack, and they probably have already entered into Pidone. So that is the main gist of the information here. The next frontline change after Zorya is at Fedorivka. So Ukrainian mapping, just now, as you can see further south, this is the Ukrainian mapping. They map this entire weird stuff as well, totally ignoring the reality that this is an impossible salient now. If the Russians are here, like, no, this gap here don't make sense, right? So similarly, we have this here, and based on Ukrainian mapping, the Russian forces have advanced down this tree line of Fedorivka. They have also advanced slightly over in Volodsk, and they have kept established a bigger buffer north of Shevchenko, allegedly overrunning some of these potential fortifications, which means the Ukrainians are now stuck in this impossible salient, which is kind of weird. The difference between the two sides is 2.4 kilometers, is like barely enough to to cross in and out safely. It's just barely enough. So this is pretty impossible. I don't think this makes any sense. A Russian pincer would destroy this pretty quickly. So anyway, yeah, all these weird mappings. So this off Fedorivka one, the frontline change is around 2 kilometers. So this is definitely quite rather big one. The Russian mapping have already mapped this as under Russian control. This is based on Russian mapping. This entire area is supposed to be under Russian control. So if you look from the Russian perspective, this is just a massive cope. If you look from Ukrainian mapping, this entire gray zone is clearly a massive cope. So in the north of Shevchenko, so this chunk here, the advance is around 800 meters, with the Russian forces moving up north, up the tree line, capturing more grounds and securing Shevchenko from the north. So, and further south from Shevchenko at Venepole, there is a strengthening of the front line, with the Ukrainian mapping have updated that this impossible salient is impossible. So the Venepole, north of Venepole, is now fully secured by the Russian forces. So this is the Ukrainian mapping strengthening the front line here. Makes perfect sense. And the advance is potentially around 1.5 kilometers, between 600 meters to 1.5 kilometers. So that's a big decent tactical change. Over here, as you can see, the KOMAR front is like collapsing. The Ukrainians lost this part. They have lost this part, potentially all of these towns here. And the Russians are securing this entire region here. The Russians are moving. They are definitely cooking and brewing this region here into a pro-Russian land. So anyway, this is the frontline change in here, and there's one last frontline change is over at Kupyansk, over at the Zaporizhzhia front. This is Zaporizhzhia. Over at Kupyansk, yesterday we mentioned this geolocation with the Russian forces advancing, planting the flag on the bridge. This time around, along this more cryptic region, geolocation of Russian forces engaging with Ukrainian forces, clearly shows that the Ukrainians indeed is still trying to defend this crossing over here. This crossing is they are defending and trying to hold the line, and so the battles is currently happening around here. So there's the Russians trying to push through, to try to cross the bridge, and at least secure the rest of this territory. So and fully securing the southern half of Kupyansk. So currently this is happening. The movement is very minor. It's probably less than 100 meters. So that's the frontline change at Kupyansk, and these are all the frontline changes for the past 12 hours. Essentially, it's going to be like 24 hours because this is pretty much most of the frontline change already. So we're going to put Zeleny Kut here as a background. So let's do some calculation of the total frontline changes. So the Ukrainians did not capture anything, as usual. The Russians captured 0.56 plus 3.46 plus 0.56 plus 0.02. The total area captured is 15.5 square kilometers, pretty decent. Of course, there are some overlaps, but definitely the frontline change is definitely should be bigger than this. But we do not have the frontline change the information because of operational secrecy plus COPE. So anyway, that's it. Thank you for watching. Happy birthday to you if your birthday today. Press the like button, subscribe. Really, press the like button, subscribe. You must subscribe because the channel is struggling, and if we cannot together as a community try to push the channel, try to encourage the algorithm to grow more, to push DPA more, then very soon, I will find food and pay my bills from other revenue source, and then the DPA activities will reduce because just not doable anymore. So I'm just saying all this upfront because it's a real concern. So I'm not saying this because I'm trying to bait you. Just look at the number of views I have. So it's not much. So anyway, thank you, and I'll see you guys in the next update.